This is the second part of my video series for my students, okay? And let's get into this. There is a humongous difference between somebody that disagrees with you and then somebody that is flat out trying to get you off of YouTube because they hate your guts. And these people don't know me well enough to hate my guts. That's the difference. Okay? Let's take this for instance. When I made my video response to how to disturb reality, not one person asked me what I really consider to be destitute. They never asked me that. They never said, well, what kind of experiences have you had that causes you to think that this kid is not in as bad a shape as, say, what you were when you were a kid? Nobody asked me that. Not one person. Instead, they said things like, shut up. That's not a disagreement. That is a flat out, they hate my guts and they want me off the air. That's the difference. These people were bashing me. And they had no right to do so. And that's why I went after them. Okay? Now then. Another one was from Connor Butro, who says, why do you care? Keep it to yourself and please leave me alone. Why do I care? Because if we keep thinking that people like How to Disturb Reality is destitute, we're not going to realize who the real destitute are. These are the people that wear Salvation Army clothes. They don't know when they're going to have their next meal. They aren't sure if they're going to be living in their house tomorrow. They don't know if their car is going to be repossessed. And even if it isn't repossessed, they don't know how they're going to put a tank of gas in there. How are they going to go to work? They can't fill up the gas tank. How are they going to go to work? They don't have a bicycle. And sometimes their workplace is 30, 40 minutes away in a car. How are they going to ride their bike to work that way? It doesn't work that way. See what I mean? That's what I was objecting to. It's those kind of things. I've worn Salvation Army clothes. I've worn Goodwill clothes. Okay, Goodwill clothes. There were times when I wasn't sure if there was going to be something on the breakfast table or the dinner table. And yes, I was made fun of a lot for wearing such clothes and not having the good food and the whole 9 yards. It was a big image problem for me when I was a kid. And that led to a lot of social problems, which I had later on. Alright, but let's go down here a little bit more. We have Douglas Stafford. He says, I don't know, I kind of feel his pain. Well, I felt How to Disturb Reality's pain just as much as this guy did. The difference was I knew what true destitute meant. And that's the difference. As I said before, anybody that has read the Northeast Community Fund Facebook page would realize what true destitute was. Do some research. Do your homework. You'll find out. Okay? Not in the same way as he does, mind you, but promoters within the fire performance industry and juggling tend to treat performers the same way, i.e. as expendable labor that you can ignore. I have gotten as many promises as I have actually gotten dollar bills. I no longer perform at raves or nightclubs and also almost exclusively do street performances, Ren fairs, and corporate work when I can find it because there are much more in the way of promises. So when he criticizes the company that makes certain promises, I feel his pain. Let me clear that up again. I had no problem with How to Disturb Reality when he complained about his company. I had no problem with that. I had a problem with him making it appear as if he was destitute. That was my problem. That's the distinction. And that's because of my personal experiences that tells you that I've been a lot closer to being destitute than he has. I can guarantee you that. I think I have just made my point. Not only do I feel his pain, but I actually applaud him doing so because he actually has an audience that listens, unlike so many other performers who are only well known with their respective arena. But the thing is that when he was going out to his audiences saying, hey, look, I'm going to be on the streets tomorrow, when the actuality turned out that that wasn't the case. When people start donating to people and find out that they're not in as bad a shape as they thought they were, then they stop donating altogether. Then what happens to the truly destitute? They don't get anything, and they starve to death, or they burn to death, or they freeze to death. You see the problems that can arise because of misleading information? That's what I'm talking about. All right. But it goes on. I mean, literally, it goes on. Matter of fact, it got so bad that I had to delete a whole bunch of these comments because I just couldn't take it anymore. Okay, this one says, you are really a jerk. How do you know what he went through and didn't badger over this? How do I know? Because he never brought up the Salvation Army boxes. He was not wearing attire that he got from the Goodwill. He didn't mention anything about his car being repossessed, his electricity being turned off, his medical bills piling up. He didn't mention any of this. That's how I know. Had he mentioned any of this, this whole situation would have been radically different. End of story. It's what he didn't say that made me react like I did. He has 50,000 people watching him on a regular basis. That's a fact. That's more than what I've got. Am I jealous of him? No, I'm not. But what I'm saying here is to stand there and appear as though you're going to be destitute tomorrow and not make a solid case, there you go. If I was facing that close to destitution, I would say, hey, look, in a week my electricity is going to be shut off. In a week I'm not going to have a phone anymore. In a week this is going to happen, so on and so forth. Then you get the max, and then prove it by pulling up all those bills and say, look, see for yourself. This is what's happening. This is my foreclosure notice. I'd have pulled that up and said, here's my foreclosure notice. Do you understand how bad this is getting? I would have done that in my video, but he didn't. And that's why he was not so well believed. Matter of fact, it has gotten so bad for him that he actually had to turn his video private because he was getting accosted like this. And rightfully so. Okay, let him do what he wants. If he continues to do what he wants, then after a while, nobody's going to believe that anybody's really that destitute and nobody's going to get any help. That's the problem. That's the difference. Let me say that a little slower. If people like How to Disturb Reality continue to stand there and show how destitute they are, despite the fact that they're not, then after a while, nobody's going to help anybody who really is facing destitution. And when that happens, what happens to the ones facing destitution? They're not going to get any help. And they may need that help at a very critical time. That's the difference. You see this all the time, where somebody say, well, I have cancer and I'm going to die. So they give them all these donations and they find out later they didn't really have cancer at all. Then they say, well, I ain't going to donate this to anybody anymore because we don't know who we can and cannot trust. You understand now? You getting it now? That was my objection. Apparently I know all this and you guys don't. But there's more to this, and I'll get into that in my next video. One of the things that was told to me, this guy is pathetic. This wasn't a disagreement. This was a flat out saying, hey, he's pathetic, don't watch him. How about this one? Dude, shut up. He is cooler than you, so don't diss on him. That's not a disagreement. That's a flat out, hey, you have no right to say anything. That's the difference. Are you getting it now? That's why I attack these people. Now then, there's a lot more for me to say. I will tell you this in part 3. Just stay tuned.